Greg Phillips at NAMM at the Fender booth. I'm with Stan Cotey. How are you, Stan?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Not too bad. I believe you do a bit of tinkering in the garage.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a good year of trying to pull something from nothing to this.
Yeah. So you've been involved in designing 5 pedals for Fender?
So we have a line of 6. I worked on 5, and then we have a couple of engineers, a guy called Alex Aguilar and a guy called Joe Brackman that worked on them as well.
Yeah.
So I did the hardware for our level set buffer, the Benz Compressor, the Pugilist Distortion, the mirror image delay, and the this is awesome, the marine layer reverb. Alex did the hardware for the Ana Overdrive, and Joe Brackman's our software engineer who wrote the algorithms.
And obviously there are thousands of pedals out there. What's the starting point for improving a pedal?
Oh yeah, so that's a good question. And the pedal space is so wonderful. There are so many amazing creative designers, people that have been in it for a long time and that really love it and come, also work in their basements and also do great work. So what do you try to do in a space that's really crowded like that? So what we try to do is think about it kind of like from where our company started, about making workable, usable tools and maybe put some cool twists and turns, but they're not meant to do everything in the world. They're meant to be a really good workman-like set of tools. So we have some unique twists in each of the pedals. Everything started from a blank sheet of paper, so there's nothing that's derivative of anything, nothing that's a clone or a copy of anything. We just took the opportunity to start over again. Like the compressor has a blend control, which other compressors do. The way our compressor does its math is really precise, so it's really fast, so it's very dependable and repeatable, so it's fun to play and very consistent. The distortion pedal, the Pugilist Distortion pedal, has 2 different distortion engines inside, and you can blend them. So the cool thing about that is you can have a gainier side that's heavier and girthier. You can have a cleaner side that's a little brighter, and then by blending them, you'll be able to hear like the pick articulation and the chordal tones come through, but still have like a lot of gain. So you can also stack them in series. So just little functions like that that are maybe a little off the beaten trail, where we tried to make it really player friendly.
Design-wise, they're quite chunky.
Yeah, and so we want them to be robust because we're planning on them being on stage. So we use good quality parts, the anodized aluminum enclosures. The quality of the boards is really good, so we intend them to be around for a long time. And people have pedals that are 40, 50 years old now out there. So we're hoping that these will stay around and people will like them.
Well, I might give Graham Walsh from Fender Australia a job and hold the microphone while you actually show us the pedals.
Awesome, great, thank you. So first up is the level set buffer. This is a buffer pedal, so it helps your signal get robust, so you can play through a lot of other pedals without signal degradation. It does a couple of other things that are fun. It has over here a separate tuner output, so you can have a tuner pedal on your pedal board the whole time and be tuning while you're playing. You don't have to mute for that. It keeps the pedal out of your audio signal path, so you don't have to worry about the pedal degrading your sound at all. It has a mute switch if you want to just go ahead and tune. And then my fun thing about this is there are a level control and a high frequency control, and this is great if you change guitars on a gig. If you go from something with lower output bright single coil pickups to something with maybe humbucking pickups that are a little darker, this lets you adjust for different guitar differences without having to adjust the gains and drives on the rest of your pedals in your amp. So it's a really great way to just switch guitars quickly and only have 1 or 2 knobs to turn and make everything make sense. The load switch loads your guitar pickups kind of like an amp would, but you can also turn it off. So if you're going to play clean funk parts or maybe jazz where you want the purity, you can turn the load off. Or if you're more of a rock player working with distortion, you can turn it on, and it takes a tiny little bit of the edge off the top. So that's the level set buffer. The Benz Compressor is a guitar stomp style compressor, but it has a very precise signal path on inside, and it uses 2 different compression channels that are blended for noise reduction. There's a blend control, so you can add in the dry signal if you want. It works very, very, very quickly, so you can go from playing very lightly with no compression to really slamming it, and there's not a big blam or pop at the front of the note. So very easy control set. I'll show you the level, the jewel changes colors when it's compressing. So you can see it kind of turn pink. So that's saying it's doing something, and there it's not. So easy to see. Compressors, when they're working well, sometimes they're hard to hear, so that gives you a little clue that they're working. The Ana Overdrive, my pal Alex Aguilar did the design of this, and it's really fun. It's a FET-based distortion pedal. FETs can behave a little bit like tubes in terms of how they distort. We did a cool thing where we ran it on a high voltage power supply internally. And so it also regulates the signal because FETs can sound a little different depending on the supply voltage. So this pedal can go from very, very clean, no distortion at all, to just light edge of breakup into kind of mid-gain tones and then into some higher gain tones. The voicing switch is set up on it where it shifts the mid-range character and adjusts the high end a little bit, and it's meant to work with amps that are maybe not traditionally pedal friendly. There's a set of amp-like tone controls and a presence control. This pedal has a buffer built in as well with a switch on the back, so you can make it, if it's your fronted chain pedal, you can make it be your buffer or you can turn it off. And there's a boost that can either give you more drive or more level. The Pugilist Distortion is fun. It's two separate distortion engines in the box, and they each have different characters. So what I typically do with this, and you can blend between them, what I typically do is I set one to be a little cleaner and a little brighter. I set the other one to be a little gainier and a little darker. And then by blending the two, I get the pick attacks and the chordal tones coming through the cleaner side, but I get the girth and the punch from the distorted side. So you can kind of blend where the two are. You can also stack them in series. So you can have the first channel going into the second channel if you want a lot of gain. There's a bass boost switch. If you're playing through an amp that is clean or small, you may want a little extra width on the low end. If you're playing through an amp that's already distorted, you probably will turn it off because otherwise too much bass can turn into mud. The mirror image delay is a digital delay. It has 3 sets of algorithms. It has a pure digital algorithm, it has a analog bucket brigade, and it has a tape delay. They have modulation available. In the case of the tape delay, the modulation adjusts the wow and flutter characteristics. There's a second delay engine inside that is set to a dotted eighth, so you can just turn on an additional dotted eighth note to your playing. And there are 2 variations for each of the delay. In the case of the analog delay and the tape, it's kind of a cleaner version and like an older, funkier version. In the case of the digital delay, it's a pure digital delay or it's a double tracker. And the double tracker does some cool things with incoming notes where it'll slightly offset pitches or times, which makes it sound like, you know, kind of a late 60s studio trick. These have a blended bypass mode where the delay tails will stay when you bypass them. So if you're playing a solo and you're ripping and the delay's holding your every note and you bypass it to go play rhythm, the delay will continue to hold that note out. The reverb is the same basic architecture, so the same thing with the decay, you know, the trails. There are 3 sets of algorithms. There's a hall, and the hall is big and dense. There's a room, which is a little sparser, better for rhythm playing. And then there are 2 special modes. There's an ambient cavernous space, which is really fun to lay chords into and just have it hold chords for ambient washes. And then, of course, there's a shimmer type delay. So the delay and the reverb both have a dry kill switch. So if you have an amp with a mixed or a blended parallel effects loop, you can keep the dry signal in your amp. All of these pedals have these illuminated pots, but you can switch the illumination off if you want. And they all have a magnetic battery door you can get to. So battery changes are really easy. There's no parts to lose and you don't need any tools. So on the front of the door there's a low battery indicator. So that's the lineup.